McCormick's enormous collection to the Smithsonian back in 2019, okay? Just in time for to work on just for COVID to interrupt the processing of it all, but they remarkably came out with a book and this box set that we're celebrating today. And Dom Flemons, who's here, and I'm going to introduce him in more detail in a second, also contributed to that book. The booklet, the enormous booklet that came with that box set. So the Bongo Joe Coleman, that was a field recording from Galveston from '62. Some of y'all might be familiar with Bongo Joe Coleman from the R. Hooley record, which is now at Smithsonian.
The early songster traditions. That was he had a name that I came across a whole bunch, especially through actually an LP that came out on the Irwin Records label that featured the music of a fellow Henry Ragtime Texas Thomas. And so I was drawn to Henry Thomas's music because he was one of the few commercial artists to record the quills, the American vernacular panpipe. And Mac's notes in that record are very informative, and they cover a lot of ground in terms of regional relevance to Henry Thomas, as well as a picture of some quills that Mac had gotten from another quills player by the name of Joe Patterson. And so I was first drawn to him because of that. Later on, I found the 2 LPs of the treasury of folk recordings that feature Texas field recordings that Mac had done. They were produced on a British blues label. And so I was drawn to this very unique mixture of not just blues, but sort of Texas vernacular music that went into cowboy music, work songs, even into places like where someone like Hop Wilson fits, where it's neither just straight blues nor just not just pop music or rhythm and blues, but something in between. And being a fan of that sort of gray area in folk music and especially in Texas music, that was something that had always drawn me in. So hearing about the monster making its way into the Smithsonian, that was exciting in and of itself. And then of course, once I finally got to hear some of the materials from the collection, that was something that was also quite amazing, just because there were a lot of musicians that I had never heard of, and nobody had heard of actually, but they were all very valid and very beautiful in their music making. And so that was something that this collection's brought out, is a lot of hidden voices that just hadn't been heard, you know, for one reason or another. I wanted to convey to people because trying to be forward thinking in terms of the way that people consume music now. I wanted to remind people that at one point, a person like Mac McCormick, he only had the shellac off of a 78 RPM to give any information about a song or a musician. And I wanted to open up that conversation of what does it mean to go behind the names of the record? What does it mean to go through the shellac and go across the street at sometimes to find more information about an artist? Because, you know, there weren't biographies, there weren't blues histories that could guide a single person to any of these artists. And so Mac McCormick went across the lines of segregation itself and began to ask people questions. And one of the other things that becomes clear is that, and this is also shown in the biography of the Phantom, he's not just talking to musicians to get his information. He's talking to anybody in the neighborhood, vendors, people on the street, asking them information about not just musicians, but the traditions and old music, and sort of very broad, wide sweeping topics. You know, so that's something that I wanted to just convey to people, is that the power and the breadth and depth of Mac McCormick's collection comes from all these years of collecting that go far beyond just putting a microphone in front of a single musician and saying go. You know, this took a lot of effort on his part.
One of the really fascinating ways that he went as a record collector was working, he signed up for the census for 1960, so he'd go into people's homes and ask them information. You know any piano players around here? You got any records? So it was, particularly in 1960 with race relations in the South, or just in general, who gets to go into people's houses? But, you know, a census worker could do that. But anyway, John, turn back to you.
Yeah, and that's part of the, that's one of the layers, one of the many layers of the archive as well, is thinking about those power relations, you know, because on one hand he's representing himself as a government official, and then he's asking them if they have any records. And so there's a real element there of some really complicated dynamics at play. And what we have attempted to do in the box set book, and also in editing Biography of Phantom, is really to kind of lay all of this out for the reader to contemplate, or the listener to contemplate as they move forward. And that also helps to explain the title, Playing for the Man at the Door, because it really speaks to that interaction and that dynamic that's at play.